Hi mathletes, we're going to look at ordering decimals today. We're going to start by looking at pairs of 2 decimals and then we'll move on to longer lists. First I'm going to show you my strategy for comparing 2 decimals at a time. I like to set up a T-chart so it looks just like this. Then what I like to do is I like to write my 2 decimals so that their decimal points match up with the center line in the T-chart. Finally, you can add zeros at the end of one of the decimals to make them the same number of places. Remember we talked about adding zeros at the end of the decimal doesn't change its value. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cross off any numbers that they have in common starting at the leftmost value. They both have a 0 in the ones place, so I can cross off the 0. That's because they have the same number in the same place. I can't cross off this 0 with this 0 because they're in different places, but these 2 zeros can be crossed off. Since I'm trying to compare numbers, it doesn't help me if 2 numbers are in the same place and they have the same value, so I'm just going to get rid of them. I look to my next value. Here I see that they are different, so this is going to make my decision for me. 7 is greater than 6, so 7/10 must be greater than 684 thousandths. And that's because place values get bigger as you move to the left and smaller as you go to the right. The biggest place value they both have in common is the tenths place, and 7/10 has a larger number in the tenths place than 684 thousandths, so this decimal is greater. That's the answer to this problem. We're going to move on to more examples. I'd like you to pause the video and try these. If you're really confused, try watching the first example and then pausing it to try the next 2. You can pause your video now. So I'm going to start by writing my decimals into the T-chart. They have a 0 in common. I always start at the leftmost number. The leftmost number here, the largest place value, is the ones place, and they share the 0, so I'm going to cross those off. The next place value, the 8 and the 4, are not the same. This is the tenths place. 8 is greater than 4, so 8/10 must be greater than 409 thousandths. If you wanted to, you could have also added your zeros in to make sure that they were the same number of places. For the next example, I'm going to get to cross off more numbers, I can tell already. I can see here that starting at the leftmost value, they both have a 1 in the tenths place, so I can cross those off. They both have a 2 in the ones place, so I can cross those off. Now I see that I can make my decision. I have a 0 here and an 8 here. I know that 8/10 is greater than 0/10. So 12 8/10 must be greater than 12 8/100. A common mistake might be to cross off these 2 8s together, but you can't do that because they're in different place values. 8/10 is not the same thing as 8/100. For my last example, I'm going to write them in the T-chart. I'm going to cross off the numbers that they have in common starting from the left. They share a 1 in the hundredths place. They share a 0 in the tenths place. Now their next place value, the ones place, has different numbers. There's a 4 here and a 5 here. I know that 4 ones is less than 5 ones, so 104 and 81/100 is less than 105 and 2/10. We're going to move on to longer lists now. Here you see that I have 5 decimals that I want to compare. I'm still going to use the T-chart method though. So I'm going to drag each of them without moving my background accidentally, drag each of them into the T-chart, again lining up the decimal point with the T-chart column lined down the middle. So I'm looking to find the smallest decimal because that's going to go first in my list. Looking at these first numbers, I have 9, 1, 0, 0, 9. I know I can't cross anything off because I could only cross it off if now all 5 of these shared the same number, and that's not the case. So I know I'm going to want to save my 9s and my 1s for later because those are greater. I'm going to start down here with these two numbers that start with 0. I know that those are going to be smaller. Looking only at these two numbers, I'm going to cross off the 0 that they share in the 1s place. I'm going to cross off the 9 that they share in the 10s place. Now I'm comparing a 9 here to a 0 here. Even though there's not a 0, you can assume that there is because there's no number written in. So I'm going to pretend that there's a 0. So I'm comparing 9 in the hundredths place to 0 in the hundredths place, and I know that 9 is greater than 0. I'm going to write a 1 next to this number, this one, because it's my smallest decimal. I'm going to write a 2 next to this one because that's my second smallest decimal. I'm now done with these. If I want, I can already start my list. So for example, I know that I've chosen this decimal right here to be my smallest. Hopefully I can grab it. Here we go, that's my smallest. And I know that this one is my second smallest. I know right away that this one's going to be my third smallest because comparing 9 to 1 to 9, 1 is the only number that sticks out as the smallest. So I'm going to cross that one off in my list. Now I'm going to look at 9 and 9/10 and 9 and 9/100, and I'm going to use the same method. So I can cross off this 9 that they both share in the tens place, and now I'm ready to make my decision. There's a 9, I'm going to cross off the 9 that they both shared in the ones place. That was my mistake. Now I'm looking at the tens place. There's a 9 here and a 0 here. 9 is greater than 0, so I know that 3 goes there. I know that 4 is going to go here, and 5 is going to go here. Again, that's because there's a 9 here and a 0 here. So I'm going to drag this to my 4th place and this to my 5th place. This is not cooperating with me. I'm sorry for the delays there. We're going to try another one. This goes the same way. Pause the video and write these 5 decimals in order from least to greatest. So hopefully you've already written your list. I'm going to drag all my decimals into my chart. Again, I'm lining up the decimal places. I'm going to start by trying to find the smallest one. So right away I see that I'm not going to be looking at the 17 yet. I'm going to ignore that for a little bit. I'm going to look at these 4 because they all share a 7 in the ones place. I'm going to cross off their 7s in the ones place, which they all share, and I'm going to look at their next value. So I see that the top one has a 5 in the tens place. Here we have a 3, here's a 5, here's a 3. So I have to look at these 2 decimals that each have a 3. Now I'm going to cross off their 3. And now I'm ready to make my first 2 decisions. I see that here I have a 0 in the hundredths place, and here I have a 6 in the hundredths place. 0 is less than 6, so this one's my smallest decimal. I don't know why this does not want to work today, so I'm just going to drag this here and this guy here. If I ever can grab it. There we go. I'm going to come back, and now I have my 7s in the whole number place, and I have 5 in the tens place, and now they have those in common, so I can cross off my 5s. Now I'm comparing the 8 in the hundredths place here to a 0. I know that 0 is less than 8, so this is going to be my next one, and then that's my next one. My 17 is the only one that's left, so that's going to go in the last place. Now I have my order.